Well, first, thank you for having me. Well, our first question will be, it's been 4 years since, the previous album, Helloween, was the first album that you recorded with Michael and Kai back in it. How do you look back on that album, the Helloween album, the 2021 album?
Oh man, well, I think it would for us as a band, it was a milestone probably, but we didn't know that when we started recording that album. So we of course we knew there will be a lot of focus and pressure because like we had a lot of attention from the tour before. So but we didn't know how it will be received, and then like, now looking back, I would say it was just a milestone for the band.
Can you explain a bit more in what way it was a milestone, music-wise, or maybe reception-wise?
Yeah, yeah. I think because we kind of fulfilled expectations, um, and we've never been a band that tried to fulfill the expectations. We've been like we did what as an artist, it's like doing an album is like a snapshot, like of where you at with your music and what you have to say. And so it always was for us about the vibe and the energy we just create at that moment. And with that album there was so much attention from the outside, after a very successful reunion tour and everything else. So it was a little bit different, but we still kind of created songs the way we do. It's not like you don't have like a plan as a band, especially since we're so many songwriters.
Yeah.
There was no real plan to do that. But of course we felt that there's a lot of attention.
What was it
And
like? Yeah, what was it like for you? Because you joined in 2002, and I think the band has been it did start in the 80s.
yeah,
Was it you to actually have Kai and Michael and the other Michael, let's say, work together again? What was it for you? Because they were a band prior to you joining.
yeah.
What did you hear? What did you learn? What was Helloween prior to you joining?
um it was for me, it was interesting from a maybe spiritual standpoint, because there were some energies coming into the band that I've known. I didn't know what they were about when they started out. So I came later, but then also I already stayed for a long time. So this whole band became also my thing. So of course, if you're in a band for more than 20 years, it's becoming family. So, and then them coming back, the history. Okay, they're like the original members coming back, but they haven't been there for such a long time as I have been in the band, for example. So it was a different feeling, but and then also I have to say we toured with Kai a couple of times with the Hellish Rock tours. So it was more like a natural flow. The only guy I actually really didn't know was Michael Kiske. So with Kai, it was like kind of a natural thing, that because we've been on tour together for so many times. And
No, I am just wondering. No, no, I'm not looking for dirt or something. I'm just
hmm
interested. You had a chemistry within the band. You had like you were saying, spiritual. You have your energy. Um, was it comparable to the energy they had in the beginning? I mean, was the soul of Halloween, has it always been the same?
I have to say we've tried that when we start. I mean, with the tour, it was pretty natural. We were like, okay, let's see how that goes. There was no like real like not a big plan behind it. So if it wouldn't have worked out, we would have probably continued as a five piece, right? So on a from a personal standpoint.
Yeah.
So, but it worked out well. So we thought, okay, let's go the next step and do this album. And then when we started writing and and kind of doing the pre-production for the album, we tried to do it the old way, which sort of worked out, but on the other hand, it didn't work out because like the old band, like my old Helloween band that I was used to, we had such a very efficient workflow already developed. And we figured out, okay, we can't do it like in the 80s, you know. You can't go to the studio like 7 people and 2 producers, and then everybody shows up whenever they show up, you know. So it's like there was a lot of chaos involved, and we figured that we're not used anymore to that sort of chaos, you know. And then we kind of concentrated on having the chaos, like a controlled chaos within the music, but not from a development standpoint, you know. So we tried that. We went to a studio and all of us together and doing pre-production, you know. And there was like this, hey, let's do it like in the 80s. Nobody's preparing songs or whatsoever. You just go into the studio and then we riff out, and we kind of just record ideas, you know. But you can't do that if not everybody shows up on time, or, you know, is not in the mood. And like, that's probably how they did it in the 80s, you know. Everybody was more open for that. And then we figured that like we have developed a more efficient way before, you know. So it's much easier for us to like, everybody is writing his songs in his home studio, and then we present it to the band, and then we go to the studio, and then everybody is bringing in his ideas and you know, yeah, footprint, you know, sort of, and that works much better for us. But we tried it, you know. We went back to that, and you know, so, but yeah, so there was a little bit different to what we did with this record, you know. Now we went to a more straight and more efficient production, you know, than with the last album.
Yeah.
So that was better, and it's also better for bands, for the band's health, you know. Like it's much better to avoid like lots of discussions, and which we had with the last album, you know. There was like a lot of, everybody needed to find, if you were like suddenly 7 members, everybody needs to leave space for the other person, you know. So yeah, and that was different. But in the end of the day, the songs are the songs, and this time it went much more fluent. And also because, you know, your question was actually really good, because when I joined the band, I came into the band in very troubling times, you know, and it takes always some time, I believe, to become a real band. Even you can't join a band and say, oh, this is the band. You have to become a band, so you have to go on tour together, which is like extreme situations, you know, like long travels, not much sleep, and all that kind of stuff happening on tour, you know. So, and not everybody is always in a good mood, you know. So you have to kind of deal with like total human things, you know, and behaviors. And when you do that for a couple of times, and then you do albums, and then like the success comes, you actually become a real band. You don't become a band by just throwing a couple of guys or girls together and form a band.
What was it for you? When did you, because you joined in 2002, when did you actually feel, well, now this is for me, this is a proper band that I've lived through it. I've lived through it. I am the band now. Did it take, I mean, I'm looking here, was it Gambling with the Devil album, or maybe the prior album, or what was it for you? When did you had the feeling?
I think it differs for people, you know, but for me, I would say it took 10 years, you know, about 10 years. And that's what I notice when I speak to other people as well who are in bands, you know. Most of the times it takes like these magical 10 years, you know, because if you live your life through tours and albums, it runs really quickly, you know. You have like this 2 to 3 year cycle. You know, you write, you do the album, you go on tour, and then bam, 3 years gone. You know, so you do like 3 or 4 albums, 10 years gone. You know, so and that's how it felt when I look back at it. You know, so I think like it really took, like, you also have to build trust. You know, if you're like a band where you have like 1 or 2 songwriters and they're the leaders and they know where to go, you know, it's much easier if you have employees, so to say. That's a model that some bands run, you know.
Yeah.
But if you're like a band full of character and different songwriters, it's much more difficult, because you have to build a lot of trust. You have to trust the other person to deliver the right songs, and you have to trust that if you take songs of a newbie, like I was, for instance, like with the first album we did, the Rabbidan Come Easy album, they already wanted to have my songs. I think that's a lot of trust from the beginning, because you don't know where this journey goes. Will it be accepted or whatsoever, or So yeah, for me personally, I think it was about 10 years. And now looking at the reunion, it's the same thing, like, of course, they're like the old guys coming back, but the band hasn't been that band for a very long time. Even before I joined, there was the era with Andy, which was pretty long already as well. So they found a new band when they came back to Helloween. For them, it was also about to build trust and checking out the new guys and checking out the differences to the past. I mean, Vikey changed a lot. He changed a lot since I knew him. Andy changed a lot, and then there comes H as well. And so you formed that band in the 80s, and you come back in 2017. I think you find a really different band than you have created.
It's true, but they have been okay. This is the second album that they recorded since they came back. But if you look at the years, it's already been 8 years for them already too. Now in this new constellation,
right?
Can you say that now? Can you say that now the new band has formed, or are you still in the process of?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always an ongoing process, but like I said, I really believe it's always the magical 10 years, and now there's much more trust and much more vibe and flow in the band than we had with the initial reunion, So and I also believe that you can hear it on that album as well. It's a different vibe. It feels more settled. At least for us, it felt more settled to do the album. There were like less discussions about what Helloween is and what Helloween isn't. That like with the reunion album, we had more discussions about that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like I said, there's much more trust with each other, and also I noticed that in another interview we had the same subject, and people got it a little bit wrong, because for some people it sounds very negative, like there was no trust at all, or there was no, why are they doing albums if they don't trust each other, something like that. It's not that. It's just like, if you don't know each other well, how could you know what everybody is capable of? Like if I totally get it. If I was Kai or Michael Kiske, and I would come back to a band that I have known 30 years ago or 35 years ago, and there's this guy who has been in the band for 20 years, but I don't know him, and he wasn't there in the beginning. Why is he writing songs? So how could he know what Helloween is about? So we have to kind of learn about who are people capable of, or if I take Andy alone, I mean, Andy is a songwriting machine. I think probably he's the one in the band who has the most talent in writing a lot of material, in a short amount of time, and so he's super talented with this, and I'm pretty sure that Kai and Michael didn't know about that so well, So it's something you have to learn, and I had to learn about the energies and also the possibilities. For me, it was like a gift to have more singers back in the band. So for me, it was like, okay, now you can write explicit for a person. I can write explicit a song where I think Andy would be the perfect fit, or I can write explicit a song in the like old Helloween style where I know like Kiske would shine on that, so to have it like as a vocal feature, so it gives you more possibilities as well. So it can be very overwhelming when it's like new, like when we started our reunion, it was kind of overwhelming the whole procedure of creating an album or going on tour together with a 7-piece. So at the same time, I find it really interesting. And now, like you said, after 8 years, I think we're almost there to be like this 100% of a band that at least I feel a band should be about, you know.
But I can also imagine when you have a new persons within the band, is it to present your own songs is always a bit vulnerable. So you have to have the trust to actually present, especially if it's more of a daring song. Maybe it's is it something that you had to? Well, you've been in the band since 2002, but for these last two albums, was it for you the same while presenting your songs? Or were you maybe a bit more nervous about what people would think of your songs?
Mm, you know, like I said, we never have been a band that you know we have a let's say from that point of view we have a very good management, which is also like you can see our manager Chan from Bottom Row. He's almost like a band member, you know, like he's so involved into everything. He's like so dedicated to the music as well. And, you know, he's not just about numbers and getting the band to shows or somewhere. He's like super dedicated for the energy that this band creates. And so for him it's you know, we have these kind of people as well, like in the pool, and you have to first get them into the songs, you know, before you think about like how will fans receive it, you know. And so we have like this team and producers, and you go like, you know, but there was never a plan. There's no plan like we should write like this and then it will be successful. We always just write how we feel, you know. And that's what I did here as well, you know. I just get inspiration and then I record it, you know, and if I'm lucky, the band likes it, our manager likes it, and then we're going to record it, and in the end of the day, maybe the fans will like it as well. So I don't have that much pressure from that side. I just want it to be good, and there are a lot of ideas I never present because I just think they might be not good enough, you know. So.
No, I was explicitly referring to the band members, but like you were saying, do you present your songs first to the band, or to the producers, or to the manager, or
To all of them?
All of them?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, to all of them. So yeah, it's like a hit and miss, you know. Like sometimes, and in the past, the funny thing is, in the past there were songs I wasn't very keen off, you know. There were like songs I thought like, well, maybe it sounds a little bit too predictable, or I'm not sure about it. And then they like those songs the most, and the songs where I put like much more effort and where I thought like they're super out of the box, you know. Then they go like, oh, that's not Helloween, you know. So there I kind of changed my strategy. Yeah. So because I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't do too much stuff out of the box. But even this time I kind of did, you know. And we're lucky enough that the band over time was experimenting so much, so which gave us a much wider or broader musical experience, you know, which is something, by the way, that Kai had to learn about this new Helloween band, you know, that it's not only the music about the 80s, so there's like a wider musical range, you know, that we can deliver because of the experimentations in the past. You know, you have like a Chameleon album and a Dark Ride album and whatsoever, you know. So and the band was always like winning fans for new music, you know.
Yeah. Well, you've written 2 songs for this new album, and I look back on previous albums, and I think you wrote 2 songs on the previous one too, and I think even 2015 one, I think 2 or 3. So I was thinking maybe I can see maybe that you write more or less songs, but your output on the album has always been the same. How come? Is it just everybody has to write the songs, or is it just that you just focus on 2 songs, or do you have more songs?
Mm, I've always written more songs, but like I said, like they need to fit in this like musical range that we have. And then it's also, of course, when you have a lot of songwriters, um, it's not easy to place your songs, you know. It's not, you know, I mean, and then at the same time, you have to figure out what kind of songs make the album feel great, you know. Like you can write like 5, 6 songs, but maybe not all of the songs give the same vibe, you know. And now that we have like 2 more members, and Kai is also a very prominent writer, you know, um, you kind of it kind of have to be a perfect story, you know. If you take an album like an experience, all the songs have to fit together in a way, you
Yeah.
know. So and yeah, I mean, if I look back in time when we did the Rap and Don't Come Easy album, there was this like Mikey rule which he brought up, which didn't work out. You know, he was like, yeah, everybody's writing like 3 songs and that's it. You know, but that's not how it works. You know, like creativity is like fluent, and you always write more material, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all of that ends up on an album. You know,
Yeah.
so and we had that in the past. I even had written songs that came out on a later album then, you know, and then it all depends on the output and the quality, and at the same time on how do all the other songs fit with your songs, you know. And sometimes I write a little bit out of the box, and sometimes it fits, sometimes it doesn't, you know.
And there's these 2 songs that you wrote, Universe, Gravity for Hearts, and Hand of God. They are placed right after each other. Um, um, can you describe the songs, the songwriting? Was it for you more out of the box, or was it for you typical Helloween? What was these 2 songs?
Mm, like I said, I music is for me just about inspiration, you know. There's no certain plan behind it. Of course, I know what the band is about, and of course, it needs to be musical. Like especially for me, since I'm like very open-minded when it comes to styles and genres. Um, I specifically write for Helloween, so it's like in that range, you know, musical wise. I know it's you know it's a metal band, so you of course write metal songs. Um, but in general, it's just I go with the inspiration, you know. So the inspiration hits, and then I record, and if I'm lucky, the band likes it, you know. So
How
and
how 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 many songs did you write for this album?
so I wrote 8. It was 8 song ideas. You have to know like there's like the part of having song ideas where you have um like a little you have a draft, you know, which is also
Mhm.
by me for me it's like a pre-production level. It's already a demo, but which is not ready to present for the band, you know, because like I said, we have producers and management involved. I want to present like ready songs. So in you could for some people it would be already a demo and you could present it to people, but I don't do that. So I always present like finished songs. So I have written 3 finished songs from beginning to end, everything recorded, vocals recorded, keyboards recorded, guitars, drums, but bass, everything. And then I had like overall I had like 8 songs, but the rest was like drafts, you know. So which I can continue for next album, you know. So
Well, then now I'm really curious about the third song. That
yeah,
no.
like I said, it's like it's many songwriters. You wanna combine all of their songs
Yeah.
on one album, and then we wanted to go tight. We said like 10 songs, no more, right? And to give it the best experience, you know.
Yeah.
So
So what is the song Hand of God? What was your initial idea behind it? What?
But you, you know, when I start write songs, always start with kind of a sound design. So sometimes it happens to be guitar, but also it happens to be synthesizer because I'm a collector. So I was always very interested in like synthesizers since the 80s when I was a kid, you know. And so sometimes I just fiddle around, you know. Sometimes I just create sounds and layers, and then well, as a hobby, you know, basically. It's not about like, no, I have to write a song for Halloween. It's like I just do sound design, and then most of the time I start singing. And that's where the inspiration comes, you know. You play, and the same happened with Hand of God. I had like this arpeggiated pad and stuff, you know. I was playing that, and this line just came to me, you know, and I started singing, you know. I was, and most of the times, you know, like English is not my first language, you know, I'm not native speaker. So for me, what I do a lot of times, I mix up like phonetically English sounding words with real English words. And then sometimes there's like this hook coming up on your mind. But then I feel like, okay, this sounds phonetically nice, you know, with the chords and everything. And then I try to find a word, and sometimes there comes this hook, you know, and with this part, it was the same way. I was playing this arpeggiated synth, and then I was like, right, you know, something like this. And then I have the melody, and I think like, okay, this is a nice melody. And then I was like, okay, this goes like right before I die, and then I go, yeah, will there be a hand of God? Yes, you know, so this is basically how inspiration comes, you know.
Yeah.
So and I go like, okay, this makes sense, and it's a nice melody. Actually, that could be a nice chorus, you know.
Yeah.
So and then I move over from transitioning. So I think like, okay, this is a nice chorus. Now I have an intro, and then I took the guitar, and it was like, how could I make it sound right with that chorus, you know? And then I came up with this groove, and it was very groovy. And I thought at first that the band won't like it because it's kind of modern. It's like kind of super groovy, not so European, you know. And Halloween is all about sounding very European. But then I thought of an album called The Dark Ride, where the band has going into that direction a little bit. And I thought like maybe it's something I can throw into the pool, you know. So I finished the song, and then I throw it into the pool. And it actually in the beginning it didn't look like that the song will make it on the album because it was so far off. But when you create an album with 10 songs and you want to have like the widest range and the greatest musical experience, you kind of like to have songs that sound different, you know, to kind of freshen up the listener's experience. And I think that might be the reason why the song ended up on the album in the end. Like in the very end, it was like, I even think we recorded it very last. It was not planned to be even recorded, you know.
Interesting. We're also embarking on a new tour, 40 years of Halloween. The set list. How do you agree on the set list? How did it go for this tour? 40 years of Halloween. So well, you actually have to have songs from every period. How did the selection of the set list go?
Which is almost impossible to have songs from every period and cut it down to a 2 hours show, you know. When you also think of classics that sometimes go like 15 minutes, you know. So yeah, it's tough, man. It has there have been a lot of discussions and ideas, you know, and at the same time you want same with an album, you want to give the people a nice musical journey, you know. At the same time, you have songs that work great on an album, but they won't work very well live, you know, just because of the vibe or whatsoever. So you kind of you also have to think like if you go on tour, you have to think about the entertainment as well. So it's not easy to put that together. And also we figured how long we're doing this now, you know, like all of us, like being with this band for so long and doing so many records, it's pretty tough to get a great set list. And then also at the same time, you want to have the classics, which you always have to play, even if there are like some people complaining. And then we figured, we even did a survey. We had this survey where we wanted to have people pick like their the most favorite songs. And it was so interesting because it totally differed from what some people write in comments. Like there's a big gap between like people who are actually actively commenting on social media and what like real fans really want. It's a whole different story. We figured,
Can you
like
can
you.
you can you with this in mind, what was an interesting song that the real fans actually wanted to hear that you didn't expect them to?
For example, Eagles Fly Free, which we played on every tour, you know, and we thought, if you go with like comments from social media, you go like, okay, people don't want to hear it anymore because they want to hear like very special interest songs we have never played of, which we also have put into the set list, which was also a challenge for us to find songs that are out of the box that the lineup has never played together. But yeah, there were so many like classics where people would go, yeah, they're always playing like the same classics, the same songs. Yeah, but you know, you can't be AC/DC without their classics, something like that. And that happened to us as well. There are like classics we actually have to play because people will be disappointed if we don't play it. And then we figured when we did a survey, there was much more attention to that than like in the comment section of our social media, so and there you go, like with marketing studies and stuff, like I always say, like when we have discussions in the band, like if someone goes like, the fans want this or the fans want that, I go like, yeah, someone was actually paying a big marketing agency to check out the fans. It's like, it's your like own prediction. You don't know actually what the
Yeah.
fans want. And at the same time, as a band, you don't always go with what the fans want. You also want to have fun with what you're doing. So it's a lot of, I think balance is the right word. You have to find balance between being unexpectable and doing the expectable thing that people love. So it's kind of, the balance is very important.
Last question is you were saying, well, you also have to look for, well, the gems in your set list. I mean, in your repertoire that you haven't played live well, maybe 20 years, for example. Can you name me one song you say, well, we're actually going to play this song, but we haven't done it recently?
Right now,
Yeah, I mean
um,
in the 40 Helloween 40-year tour.
there's so many songs we haven't played. And
One that you actually well, that you really like, that you are really fond of to play.
yeah, I always thought that we we really could pull off a song called Push. I really thought, but I thought the same thing with Falling Higher like 10 years ago, and we played it a couple of times. Like I said, there are songs you you think they're out of the box and you're playing them, and then at the end of the day you figure that there's like this like super small group of dedicated fans who are like into each one of the albums, like super involved, and they like that, but the mass of audience don't even know the song. So we had that in the past, so you have to be really careful about like the special interest of songs. So we experimented with that a couple of times, which didn't work out, and not didn't work out because it was like badly played or whatsoever. It's just like you have like this party vibe on a Helloween show. Like we're all about like very entertaining and positive vibes. And then sometimes you have like these super, I call them gourmet songs, you kind of enjoy on the album. And then if you hear that live, it's suddenly like the whole entertainment and the whole like positive party vibe goes down. We had it, for example, when I don't know what it was, it the gambling album? No, it was Keeper of the Seven Keys, The Legacy. we had a song called Occasion Avenue. Each time we have played that song, it like the whole audience went like super down. It was like there was no, there was no party vibe. There was no like this typical life experience. It was a good song, and it was on the album. It worked perfectly. It like as part of the story, but for some reason it didn't work out live. And you have always kind of think of those impacts as well. When you choose songs. But there's another thing that we bring to this tour, which I really like, is now that we have like Andy and Michael singing, we of course can do songs which Michael never sung before, which is like a song that was meant to be for Andy, in the past. And so we can mix up stuff, which is really nice. We can have Kai and Andy and Michael singing together and stuff like that. Or for me, it's nice to have like the old legends playing their twin guitar solos, and I go back and I play rhythm guitar, and it's actually fun because suddenly you don't have this like gap that we had when we have been two guitar players. You can do actually stuff that's on the album, and we can really present it that way. It's fun to do that.
Last question I have: did you look up to the guys in Helloween in the 80s? So before you joined, I mean, when you were a young kid, and did you look up to, Kai or Michael?
Oh man, actually, I have to say, I looked up to every German artist who has been successful. When I started out playing guitar, it was like everybody who kind of made it which was in my brain almost impossible.
Okay.
Not being from the UK or US, but regarding especially Helloween, I wasn't. But back in the day, I was into different types of bands, but of course I've known the band. I mean, when I was in school, Helloween was all over. You had like in the youth magazines and then we used to exchange mixtapes. You remember that time, right? So and some of my friends here have made me a mixtape, and there was a song on there. It was called March of Time. So which wasn't even the most popular song back in the day. Now that I know the band's history, but it ended up on my mixtape, and I liked it. So yeah. So the whole thing that Vikey would call me up one day and I would join the band was mind blowing.
Then with this in mind, when they returned, Kai and Michael, did they tell you something about your guitar playing, about your songs for Helloween? I mean, could be a special moment maybe for you.
You mean that
on a personal level, those guys joining, and they were from the 80s, and you had been in the band for then 14, 15 years, and you did the reunion tour. Did they compliment you on your work for Helloween? Was it? I can imagine you being younger, maybe that could have been a special moment, but you are looking at me right now. Well, no, it wasn't.
I think musically they started recently to respect me more. Like it's not that they have been in disrespect, but they had to learn who I'm about.
Yeah.
But what they and I must say I remember meeting Kai a couple of times when I was maybe 19, 20 years old, because I had a band called Freedom Call, where I was really young when we started out doing the first two albums. And Kai's drummer from Gamma Ray was the drummer in my band, so Daniel Zimmermann. And so I met him a couple of times, and I know that he liked my playing. He was like back in the day already. But I think what they respected me for from the beginning was all the other things I do to the band. Like I do a lot of stuff in the background, and I'm like super energetic about the outcomes when it comes to like visuals and and like keeping things together, like organizing stuff, even rehearsals and stuff. And I think they kind of appreciate it from the beginning, and yeah, and everything else will be history, everything else you do on the way. It's like you do albums together, you go on tour together, you learn about each other, and of course it's not always easy. Like I'm the youngest band member, and there are things that come with age, like you naturally be more respected when you're older, So when I joined Helloween, I was 25 years old, and it was even hard for fans to respect that, So
maybe you should dye your hair gray then.
yeah, I should probably go when it's about time. I might do that, Like now there's not enough gray hair yet. So.
Okay. Well, Sasha, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was a nice interview.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Well, maybe I will join. Maybe I will take a look in the 013. But enjoy the reunion show. I mean the 40th anniversary shows.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care, man. Take care.